Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
The tranquil, soothing, natural sound of flowing water. Listening to it has been shown to lower your heart rate and blood pressure and generally relax your whole body. Combining the magical sound of cascading water with the beauty of plants, Hydria Life will now enable you to use those same health and well-being effects at home or in the garden. Get 10% off their rechargeable Hydria fountain at hydrialife.com. All you need to do is quote the code PLANT24 when ordering.
Hi everyone, it's Ellen Mary here. Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. We have another special episode for you today. This person I have a girl crush on. Yeah, I just admitted that out loud. She is absolutely epic. And when I say her name, you're totally going to know who she is. But Michael and I, we had the chance to chat with her all about how she transitioned from her high-flying career to down-to-earth gardener. Does that give you a clue? This was a listener favourite, so that's why we are re-releasing this episode, so you can hear all about August's garden, how she transitioned from being a Virgin Atlantic air stewardess, and now her feet are firmly on the ground in her beautiful garden, where she posts loads of photographs and videos of just all of the wonderful things that she grows. Her kids gardening as well. She cooks in the garden. It's all very magical and fairy tale, and she always looks so blooming glamorous as well. But not only that, she runs a gardening school at Belmont-le-Manoir. So she's travelling all around the world again, and giving talks at different establishments and at shows and festivals. And she's just the most wonderful person. And it's not just me who thinks that, because when we look through all the statistics to the shows, August Garden, this episode is one of the highest highest downloads. Yes, the highest downloads of all of the episodes. So we know you're going to love it. If you haven't listened to this before, carry on listening. You're going to love August. And if you did listen before, we all want a second dose of August. So here you go. Enjoy the episode.
Our guest on the show today is the ever smiling, she's literally sitting here smiling right now, floral dressing, get down and dirty gardener August, known as August Garden to her over 100,000 Instagram followers. August is here to tell us about her career change from flying high to down to earth and her work at Belmont-le-Manoir, owned by the great Raymond Blanc. I think this is going to be an excellent start to Series 8. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting, especially when people actually want to listen to me talking about vegetables. That to me is just, my husband gets so bored. So the more people that want to listen to me, I'm like, oh, amazing.
No, I think you're great. I think you're absolutely infectious. Yeah, so we really want to welcome you to the podcast. Great way to kick off the new series. But where are you recording the podcast episode from today? Are you on the you have to be honest.
I was in the gym, in the changing room, but I think that the changing room door was a little bit big for the Wi-Fi. So now I'm sitting outside the gym. So I'm not actually doing anything in the gym.
What I want to know is it you who's been in the gym, or is it someone else and you're just hanging out waiting for them to finish in the gym?
Well, actually, I'm sitting around the pool reading. I'm doing a degree at the moment, so I'm sitting around the pool studying at the gym, which I think is a better use of time, because the gym to me is actually a waste of time because I get my gym workout in the garden. So I'd rather use that downtime to be able to study.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, we're looking forward to finding out more and about what you're studying shortly. And I thought I would just quickly mention that also, before we get into it, is that many of our listeners would have already heard you on the podcast because you've been a contributor before in a previous series. So it's really nice to have you back as a full-on guest as well. So a familiar voice, that's for sure. But let's go back to the very beginning. We want to know about the high-flying career pre-horticulture. What did you used to do?
Well, I think like literally my whole world has turned upside down from working in the sky as an air hostess for 20 years, I think it was. So I was traveling all over the world, and that was kind of, when I was little, that was the only thing I ever wanted to do, was be an air hostess. So I suppose like at the age of 19, I applied and I worked for Virgin Atlantic, and I got in straight away and I loved it. And I never had any intentions of leaving. And I would say it was sort of an incredible job that took me all over the world. And I've had some of the most incredible experiences. So I suppose where I am now, if you'd have told me 5 years ago that I would be teaching gardening, talking about growing carrots, I literally would have chased you down the aisle with my teapot because I'd have been, don't be ridiculous. There's no way. I was really that person that said, every plant I touch dies. You know, there's always one, isn't there? And that was me. So, it's been a real roller coaster, I suppose, over the last I only started growing 5 years ago. So it's been an incredible journey. Very fun.
So what on earth happened? Because I see this not as a career change, but almost a career switch, completely in the other direction. What happened? You woke up one day and you just were thinking of carrots, or what happened? Be honest.
I think actually I've done a couple of talks and I talk about it a lot, but I never really talk about probably what started my, I would say, obsession with produce and vegetables and growing and things like that. And I would imagine really, and I look back and think that over 20 years of traveling, and you can never, I don't know, you two travel quite a lot, don't you? And I don't know how you find it, go into a hotel, the room service menu is usually shocking. And there's like one carrot that they put as a token vegetable on the side. So I think that my beginning journey was that I'd go all over the world and I'd be trying to find somewhere that I could find a salad or something that tasted nice. And that became more of an obsession to me, going to find healthy restaurants. And like Ellen, I know you're vegan, and it's trying to find that produce and it becomes really hard and becomes a part of daily life. So I kind of lived out of a suitcase for 20 years. So when I opened my first packet of seeds and grew my first vegetable, I think that the connection that I'd had for all those years of craving healthy vegetables really was like, oh my goodness, I have just grown that. And it was just like this overwhelming feeling like, I don't actually need to go and try and find vegetables all over the world when I can just grow them myself. And there's nothing to me more magical than walking outside your back door with that basket and filling it up with everything that you've grown yourself. It's just, I think it's just, to me, that is just the whole magic of it, really. And that kind of, so you say about 5 years ago, I opened my first packet of seeds and we'd moved into a house where I had a bit of space and I started growing things, but everything died and I couldn't quite work out what I was doing wrong. And I think it's very much, in lots of supermarkets or garden centres, they sell produce that you can grow, like the plugs, maybe at the wrong time of year. And there's not that much information on pests, diseases or anything like that. So when I planted my first cabbages, I couldn't understand why they just disappeared overnight. And they looked like a lacy pair of pants because they had so many holes in them. They didn't distinguish a cabbage anymore. They literally looked like, I don't even know what they look like. So my husband bought me this vegetable planning guide and it answered all my questions. And it was like, I don't know, it was like one of those dun 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 moments, like
a light bulb moment.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. And yeah, it's kind of like, oh right, I can understand how nature works. And at the beginning, hand on my heart, I did use like sprays, chemicals, things like that, because I didn't know any different. And I would say my life pre-growing was pretty unsustainable. I wouldn't say I recycled or anything like that. So I think that this journey's not only helped me in the garden world, but also while gardening, you find these beautiful, frogs, toads, and then you realise what they do for your vegetable patch. Like, they come and eat all the slugs and the snails. So rather than screaming and running halfway across the vegetable garden, I kind of started looking at them with a different eye and thinking, oh, actually, you're helping me. I want you here. And I think it's all the interrelationships that go around the art of growing your own is then became an obsession, really. And that was the beginning.
We figured that out for sure. You're right. When you open your first packet of seeds and you don't really know what you're doing, there's such a small amount of information out there, although there's more now about why you shouldn't do certain things like using pesticides, and that why you want to encourage creatures into the garden that you wouldn't know before. And I think you go on a bit of a journey when you start gardening. You don't know that at first, and I don't think I've seen people who've just maybe started taking on their allotment, and in the first year, and I can see they've used a spray or something, and I don't hate them for it, because they don't know any different. So it's like up to us and those with a bit more experience to kind of educate in a gentle way without patronising and without judgment, of what might be a better practice for everyone. But I love that journey that you go through. You've kind of just nailed it, really. Do you know what I mean? That kind of feeling of, wow, I grew that. And when you were saying before about craving vegetables, room service and hotel food in general, when you're traveling, when you're vegan, is a nightmare. So it's like a bit of a joke that sometimes if I'm away in various hotels, it's like fries and salad for like days. And I crave broccoli. I crave broccoli. Like, I don't know what it is. If I've had a few days of not being able to eat like properly, it's like all I want to do is just eat broccoli.
Oh, I feel that. I used to land home from a flight and think, I just want to eat a giant cauliflower. Just that's it, on a plate. Just no more fried food. Just something nice and healthy and wonderful. And it is. I think we're getting back more there now, where you go everywhere and they have these really nice sort of healthy options and things. But I think there's still places where it's so difficult.
Yeah, it is. I agree. So growing your own definitely helps. Like, it can supplement. If not, if you've got enough space and time, you could perhaps even grow your whole diet. But like, realistically, with space and time, that can't always happen. But supplementing, it's amazing. So August, now gardening or horticulture in general is like your full-time job. You're creating content. You work at Belmond Le Manoir as well, and you've got your little packs of seeds for children. Is that the Seed Explorers?
Seed Explorers, yes.
Seed Explorers. And you also you help with a little garden for kids as well, don't you? Tell us all about it. Like, what are you doing now? Like, what's your week like?
Honestly, I think last week I was at breaking point. I don't know if you two ever feel like that, but I think because there's so many things going on, because I'm passionate about everything in horticulture. I just love, and you can't spread yourself everywhere. But I suppose my journey kind of very much began when I went to Le Manoir for lunch, and I walked into that vegetable garden. It was only 3.5 years ago, and I was quite self-taught at that point. And I walked into the vegetable gardens, and I know you've been there, Ellen, and it is just, oh my goodness, like the gardens are overflowing with squashes, pumpkins, and it's just like walking into an edible wonderland. And I kind of walked into this veg patch and I thought, I need to be here. And I hadn't had any experience in gardening before. And I went up and asked if I could volunteer, and they didn't have any volunteers. But they gave me Anne-Marie Owens, who is our head gardener, her card. And I just sort of went away and didn't think of anything of it. And then I went to San Fran that week and I couldn't sleep. And I thought, I'm going to Google gardening jobs. And the first job that came along was a kitchen gardener at Le Manoir. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is so weird. So I texted it to my husband thinking, oh my goodness, she's going to think she's gone bananas again. And he said, go for it. I was like, okay. So I did. Oh. And I turned up for my interview looking like a full-on air hostess. So like with the hair, makeup, heels and everything like that.
Oh, no way.
Oh yeah. And I remember all the garden team looking at me as if to say, what the hell has turned up for an interview? And I didn't think any of them thought I was ever going to last. And here I am. So since joining, I studied horticulture, left flying, went to college, studied horticulture, and then really have my eyes set on teaching the Raymond Blanc Garden School. So in the meantime, I started working at a school in Hayes where I've created a kitchen garden, a no-dig kitchen garden for the kids to like really connect with nature and learn. And, you know, all my children were saying, I don't eat vegetables. And I was kind of like, okay, so hands up who eats chips. Oh, everybody. Hands up anybody that eats crisps. Oh, everyone. So actually, kids, yes, you do eat vegetables because your chips and your crisps come from a potato. So it's been really interesting. And now they walk around the garden picking edible flowers, giving it to their friends. And that kind of, to me, is just pure magic in itself. And then I was lucky enough to go for the role of garden school tutor, and I got that. So now I'm head tutor of the Raymond Blanc Garden School. So I get to teach our guests at Le Manoir all about the beautiful produce that we cook, our micros, and the importance of that connection from seed to plate, and also soil. I mean, I think to me, that's one of the most important parts because that's where it all comes from. So I try and really emphasize a lot on soil, nature, and the whole sort of biodiversity ecosystem that goes around the gardens of Le Manoir. And hopefully that inspires guests to go away and grow, or they go away thinking I've got a really big headache.
No.
I just want to know, I want to make sure that you don't do any of this still in your heels because you would be sinking into that perfect soil there, that's for sure.
Oh, that would be amazing. But no, I am work boots all the way. I think my heels went out in the rubbish. I can't wear heels anymore.
You know, when I went to Belmond Le Manoir, that was 3 or 4 years ago now. 3 years, I think. 4 years, I don't know.
Yeah, 3 years, I think it was, yeah.
And it was my friend's 40th birthday. So we were there having food and some cocktails. And I was like, I just got to go over there to the garden. And they're like, aren't you going to come in and have cocktails? I was like, yeah, later. And I was hours later, just walking around. And it's just a magical place to be. It's so beautiful. And I knew you were working there because obviously you'd said and we'd been in touch about it. And I was so not jealous. Jealous is not the word. What's the word? That's not jealous. But I was like thinking of you working there, like, wow, this is just what an amazing place to work.
Incredible.
Envious, but in a nice way. Like, I'm so happy for you that you.
When you don't want to kill someone through jealousy, that's
envious.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, because like it's just.
You don't want to stick a fork in my head.
No, I definitely don't want to do that. No, and I just like it's just so beautiful. Like, what an amazing place to work, and the change of career for you. I think this is a real this is obviously this episode is largely about career change, and this is such an amazing example of that. Like, you have literally gone from one extreme in the sky bang down to earth. Like it's such an extreme change. It's amazing.
Oh, it's been such an incredible journey. And I think to have that passion and then to be able to be somewhere like Le Manoir, which to me, the reason I wanted to be there was because I think it is one of the most beautiful gardens in the country. And everything's not to that show-stopping perfection. It's real. It's a real working garden. And we have the same problems as everybody else. We wake up in the morning and the pigeons, we must have the fattest pigeons on the face of the planet. They're like Michelin star fed pigeons. They're like these giant, great big birds. I've never seen anything so big. But and being able to be there and learn, and also to me, the most wonderful part is you wake up in the morning, straight in, picking those massive, great big courgette flowers, and then doing the morning harvest. And by 10 o'clock, we're taking it up to the kitchens, and then to see what those chefs create in those kitchens is just incredible. And I think that I'm really lucky to be able to see that whole process from seed to plate, I think, and to be able to teach that as well. So I think it's just wonderful. And I think obviously Raymond is such a huge part of Le Manoir, and just seeing his passion and drive and what he's created from being completely self-taught is inspirational in itself. And when I spend time with him, I can just see myself in him, like how he feels about his cooking and the gardens and the produce is just how I feel. So I think that you're surrounded by this family of people at Le Manoir who are so passionate about everything they do, and then we sort of interconnect throughout our daily life at Le Manoir and create something what I think is quite magical.
Yeah, I have to just say, like, we were just complaining about hotel food, especially like for vegan food as well, but the plant-based food at Le Manoir was mind-blowingly good. Like, the flavors were absolutely incredible, and our friends who aren't vegan said, "Oh, you're going to be missing out because we're going to have all nice food, yeah, da da da." And I'm like, that's just never going to happen. And
that's a stupid thing for them to say as well.
Lots of people say that, but anyway, regardless, when I got our food, it was absolutely the flavors were epic. You know, it was so clever and complex, but not. And just every course was fabulous. You could taste the fresh veg. You know.
Oh, I mean, it's an experience, isn't it? I think it's not just about food. It's, to me, the whole of it is the story and the passion and the love, and you can see it on the plate. I think and they're so, like, the chefs are just as passionate about the produce as we are out in the garden. I think you can feel it and you can taste it.
Ask before we move on, did you ever grow anything when you were younger? Like when you were a child, did you have a little patch or a house plant? Or because it feels like, growing just came to you almost as an epiphany.
I know.
You've got no history
definitely.
of growing,
No, I remember doing like a cress head at school, like that old one where you do it in the egg thing. I remember seeing my granddad in the greenhouse, but never really got that involved with it. And I never had any passion, but I'm very creative. And I think that I bring out sort of my creative side within the garden by using the plants as my sort of art, my paint, and the soil is my canvas. So I feel like that's how my creative sides come out in that instead, really. But it was a weird...
all the more inspirational as a career switcher that I'm so proud of.
Anyway, thank you. Switcher, I like that.
It totally does. Yeah,
well,
it really does.
What would you say, like, because now obviously you've got your job, you're doing content creation. What do you like doing the most at the moment? The teaching or?
As long as my biggest thing is probably sharing my passion. So when I get to do things like this, or when I'm teaching my garden school, I've got a workshop tomorrow evening, and it is that connection with people as well. So I think that's where my hospitality side comes in, that not just talking about gardening, but sharing that passion. And to me, the biggest gift is that if I have a garden school or do a workshop and somebody goes away and is inspired by something that I've said, or, an idea that I've maybe sort of put across, or we've come to, I think as well with my garden school, I try and get everybody to bring in their experiences as well, because we can all learn from each other. So I think if people go off and they're inspired about gardening and to have a love like I do, that to me is what drives me and what I love the most about all of it.
That was such a diplomatic answer. I love it.
That's very good. With such a massive career change, you've had an amazing career. Were you with Virgin? Am I right?
Yes.
You flew with Virgin, yeah. So flying all around the world, having these amazing experiences, and then making like the switch to horticulture must have, I don't know if it felt scary, but for some people, like I get messages from people all the time saying, I don't really know how to get into horticulture. I don't know what career path to take. It can be a little bit scary. Do you have any guidance or advice for anyone who's thinking of switching careers from something else into horticulture?
Because also,
absolutely.
can I just slide in there? Because also, it might be difficult financially as well for some. So if you can add in a dribble of that advice as well, that would be really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I mean, obviously, the world of horticulture, I did take a pay cut as well. So there was a lot of sacrifice. You know, I lived probably quite a basic lifestyle, but that to me was the way I looked at it that was my education. So rather than paying to go to college, I was doing my training on the job. But it was really scary because I think for me, my biggest worry was that I wasn't going to be able to cope with the amount of work and the physicality of it throughout the seasons because it is hard. Like, I'm not going to say that it's the easiest job I've ever done because when you're outside in the snow and you're digging in the freezing cold and your feet feel like they're going to fall off, you have to have passion and love to get you through those days because it can be quite brutal. And that is the honesty of working in a garden or a kitchen garden or any kind of garden. It is manual and, you know, my hand aches at the end of the day and I sit there with a little massage machine that I got for Christmas and I think, but it was all worth it because I grew the best courgette this week. But I think it is that, you know, if you're passionate and you believe in yourself, and I think to me that's the key, is just believing that what you can do, that you can achieve anything you want to. And yes, you do have to start off, and I did take a pay cut, but if you work hard and, you know, I was studying all hours, God sent, and then eventually now I'm, you know, getting to a better role and
it's not all about money. It's about
absolutely not.
What makes you feel good as well, as long as you can afford to
exactly
live,
and I think I would rather eat rice for a week for months and do something that I love than the money. That means absolutely nothing to me because at the end of the day, happiness is, you know, it's where you find peace, isn't it? And I can honestly say, you know, living that sort of lifestyle as being an air hostess and traveling all over the world, you do get anxiety, tiredness, jet lag, emotional. And I would say that since leaving, I've probably not been so stable because every day I wake up and I skip into work and I absolutely love it. Although I am slightly worried about Wednesday because this heat wave I feel like could be quite
Is
testing.
Wednesday the pinnacle of it, is it?
I don't know. It looks like it could be. And I'm going to be, there is nowhere to hide in that vegetable garden. So you may find me frazzled in a corner somewhere.
Set up a marquee that follows you around. Yeah.
Oh yes, a little gazebo would be quite nice, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
My mother-in-law brought me this fan thing that goes around your neck. It's terrible and it's really heavy, but it's amazing. It looks pretty stupid, but when you put it around your neck and it's just blowing cool air on you, it makes all the difference.
Or one of those, what are those little umbrella hats that you see when you go on holiday to the beach and you just, it looks like a little umbrella. That would be quite fun. I don't know whether I'd get away with that at work.
No, I'm not sure that would really fit in with the look of Le Manoir, to be fair. And something that is always on your socials and that you're clearly passionate about is getting children into gardening, you know, with the work that you do. And your girls as well, like they're always out in the garden foraging and picking things and with your chickens. It's so lovely to see, you know, the enjoyment in their faces is so obvious, you know. How important is that to you to be gardening with your children, and how important is that, you know, do you think, for future generations in general?
I mean, to me, I think it's been really interesting, that journey with the children, because Winnie was only 2 when I started growing and Posey was 4. So they were quite new at the beginning of my journey as well, obviously new to the world, but they didn't really eat lots of vegetables either. So I think that that's something that's really made me passionate about the growing as well. So seeing their connection change with food, seeing, you know, them going from not really eating potatoes to growing their own and then digging them up like buried treasure, and seeing the happiness on their face when they've grown this produce and then they get to cook it, and seeing them then eating it, whereas they didn't before. I think that really is where my connection with growing has probably peaked as well. And that's where I wanted to then work with the children, because I just feel like my generation particularly, I didn't really know much about growing. And, you know, I just thought that food was from the shops. I didn't really consider where it had come from and where, you know, how it's grown or anything like that. So I really try and teach the girls every process of the stage, and to appreciate food and to understand that, when they leave food on their plate, somebody's grown that, or somebody's, worked really hard to produce that food, that it's not just something to throw in the bin, that, we need to appreciate everything around us. And I think that by doing the garden, creating their food, they understand that it's not just a throwaway element of everyday society. It is, there's a third person. There is somebody behind every element of that. And that's what I try and really bring to life with them. And then, if they don't eat a particular vegetable, then I'll grow colourful beetroots or Winnie. I can always, honestly, I have this one dahlia that I love in the garden, the big dinner plate pink ones. Yeah. And I just love looking at them. And then every year, without fail, the first flower that comes, I'll see Winnie trotting across the garden, eating it like a lollipop on a stick. And I'm like, oh, so they love eating the edible flowers, and it kind of has stopped them being so fussy. I feel like that whole process has taught them to appreciate and taste and experiment more.
Mm-hmm. That's really
How beautiful. Honestly, the photographs are always so lovely, and the reels of them there, you can see that they're completely immersed in the garden, and it's lovely to see.
So what's next on your agenda, August? Obviously, August is coming up, so that is your month.
Oh, it is.
Is that when you really come to life?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I've got loads of fun things. I'm doing the Happy Place Festival in August, so that'll be really cool. I'm really looking forward to that. So I've got a workshop, one in Chiswick, and then in September I've got another one. Lots of gardening schools throughout the whole of August, and then obviously birthday parties. Mm-hmm. Although I'm not going to tell you how old I am because I'm prehistoric now. But yeah, I mean, it is the best. Actually, I don't know if it is the best month in the garden. I always actually quite like September because I feel like, all the dahlias and the zinnias are out, and then you start seeing like the squashes growing and growing. So I'd say September's probably my best month in the garden. But yeah, it will be a fun-filled month. But I think more talks and sharing that love of growing with everybody potentially.
That's so cool. And you're so refreshing.
Sorry. Yeah, you are completely. You are totally infectious to talk to. It's fabulous.
Yeah, definitely.
And also at the beginning you said about studying as well. So what are you studying too? How do you fit this all in? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't. Well, yesterday I was very stressed because I had an essay due in today. So I thought I can't relax until it's done. But so I think this whole process is kind of, because I've studied horticulture, which I do intend on studying in depth a little bit more. But it's kind of led me into this environmental area where I suppose really after flying for 20 years and dumping emissions all over the planet and not thinking about recycling or considering my impact on the planet whatsoever, I felt really ignorant. And I think the more you delve into gardening, the more you realise how connected we are. And people had asked me questions and I think, I have no idea. I didn't even know that, by me not recycling my clothing was going to have such a massive, huge impact on the world and the carbon emissions and things like that. And I think from feeling so stupid because I didn't have a clue has really pushed me forward into studying and learning more, not just for me but for the kids and for obviously my page, which I do share a lot of my passion and everything with. But I think as well, I've never in my life really wanted to learn. When I was at school I just sort of did it because I had to and that was it. But now I've got this overwhelming love for something that I want to know everything about it. So studying environmental studies, and the more I'm studying it, the more it's so connected to everything that we do as gardeners, and it's all so important. So I think that that's something that I'd really like to focus on in the future as well is, how can I make a difference, or how can my children make a difference? And by me teaching them, hopefully they're not going to grow up as stupid as I was.
It's just a different
I'm sure
time.
you were not stupid, August.
Wow, I don't know. I mean, I probably took about 12 hours to work out which bin am I supposed to put that in.
We all did. Do you remember when we first got the recycle bin? So you would have like your waste bin and your recycle bin, and then there would be like a sign that would say all the things you could put in it. And this was like however many years ago. And I used to go and look at that like a million times before. Can I put this in there? I don't understand. Like it took ages, and everyone was like, "Do we have to have recycling and waste?" But now it's just all very natural.
Yeah, it has changed. Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and opening up the series A. It's been such a pleasure, and I think this is a lovely one because people do often talk about career changing and they've found their passion for gardening one way or another, but they work in a completely different industry and they don't really know how to switch in. So I think this is a really lovely, encouraging podcast to help anyone to do it and follow your passion. And what you were saying also about kind of just getting opportunities. I think when you follow your passion, the opportunities do come because you're doing something that you love so much. And then when you share that passion like you do, opportunities come to you and they come at the right time. Definitely. It's like everything aligns because you're sort of living in that space that makes you so happy, and you're clearly doing that now. So
absolutely. And I think there's so many avenues within horticulture. You don't have to go into horticulture or gardening and think, I'm going to be a gardener, because you could, like you do all those beautiful workshops and you talk about it. There is an area within horticulture, I think, for everybody, if that's your passion, and you can find your little niche. Takes a little bit of time to figure out what you like to do as well. And I think there's something for everyone.
I couldn't agree more. Like horticulture is a massive industry, isn't it? I think once you learn about it, you realise, you have to be a scientist. You have to know English, maybe even a bit of Latin. Not that you have to, but you do, and maths and geography and maybe history. Like there's so much, and there's so many avenues that you can go down that there's definitely space for absolutely everybody. So if anyone's listening to this and you fancy switching in to horticulture, then absolutely go for it. And in the meantime, follow August on Instagram.
Thank you so much for joining us today, darling.
Thank you for joining us
so much. It's been so lovely to chat to you, and hopefully we'll see each other soon in real life for another drink.
Absolutely.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
See you, darling.
Bye.
The tranquil, soothing, natural sound of flowing water. Listening to it has been shown to lower your heart rate and blood pressure and gently relax your whole body. Combining the magical sound of cascading water with the beauty of plants, Hydria Life now enable you to enjoy these same health and well-being benefits at home or in the garden. Get 10% off their rechargeable Hydria fountain at hydrialife.com when you quote code PLANT24 on ordering. That's PLANT24 on ordering.
The music for the Plant-Based podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.